which came straight from so many grade B movies we've all seen. I was in a room being interrogated, and I knew that...
Cease fire to his opposite numbers from the Iraqi military. Word from the meeting has it that faced with the facts in the field, the Iraqis agreed to all of the coalition's conditions. First of all, a swift exchange of... During interrogations, they were blindfolded and beaten, kept in solitary confinement for 24 days. Yesterday, they were released in Baghdad. Last night, they flew to London, and this morning, they talked with Ed Bradley.
Here at a hospital in London, I talked with correspondent Bob Simon, producer Peter Bluff, cameraman Roberto Alvarez, and soundman Juan Caldera. Their car was found abandoned near the Kuwaiti border during the first week of the air war.
We weren't after the story of the war. We weren't after an enormous scoop. We just wanted to check out what was going on. And we drove up to the border to check out what was going on at that border, and we're checking out the other side of the customs post, no man's land, when the Jeep that changed our lives showed up and took us away.
What happened?
Peter saw it first, said there's a Jeep coming across the sands at us. I made a calculation, and I suspect my three friends made the same calculation. Can we run these 200 yards before the Jeep gets to us? My calculation was no. We started walking quickly back, but not running. The Jeep stopped, I'd say, 10 yards away. There were 3 men in it, one driver, who I think was the officer. He got out, and 2 guys with Kalashnikovs got out and started saying, peace, peace, peace. But then the guns were at us, and a hand came down on my head, and I was shoved into the Jeep. And there we were.
But you all had credentials.
You don't automatically assume in that country that this person is what his card says he is. He could be something else, which we quickly became.
The British journalist Farzad Bazaf was executed last year by Saddam for what he said was spying. That must have been at the back of your mind.
Forced to the front of my mind, because on the long journey north from Basra, the guys in the truck kept poking fun at me, the British journalist, and he kept leaning forward and whispering in my ear, Bazaf, and then they'd have conversations, which obviously didn't understand, except the name kept popping up. And that was actually frightening.
My second interrogation came at the intelligence headquarters, when they brought me down, asked me my name, and said, we consider you a spy. That was the only moment in the 40 days that I lost it. I said, I'm not a spy. I'm a journalist. I've worked for CBS News for 25 years. And they said, Bazaf said he was a journalist. And I said, but I've been one. I've been one for 25 years. And they said it could be a cover. And I just blurted out instinctively, it hasn't been a cover, it's been my life.
Now, you guys weren't tortured, were you?
Not in the orthodox sense of tortured.
But physically roughed up?
Yeah.
We were blindfolded, which made it all the more frightening. They beat us with canes, with sticks, on the legs, on the head. And they did something which came straight from so many grade B movies we've all seen. I was in a room being interrogated, and I knew that my 3 friends were outside the room in a hall. The door was closed, I knew that. But when they were getting to these important questions, they opened the door and beat Juan, Peter, and Roberto, so they would scream, and I would hear them scream while they were asking me questions and beating me at the same time.
I can remember a couple of canes breaking over my head. I think I've got rather a thick head. But it's the shock of it, and it's the combination of you're in the dark because you're behind a blindfold. You've been 8 or 9 hours prior to that. You know it's dark. Even if the blindfold came off, it would be dark. You wouldn't know where you were anyway, even if it wasn't dark. You can hear things happening. You can hear there were dogs barking in this particular area. And there was bombing nearby. I don't know how close, maybe a mile, 5 miles, depending on the size of the bomb. All those things go together to shock.
An army guy, a captain, he had 2 stars, which is a captain in the Iraqi army. He grabbed me by the face, forced my mouth open, and said, "Yehudi, Yehudi," which means Jewish, and then spit at me and slapped me. This sixth instinct that every anti-Semite has ever had. Jew, dirty Jew. I didn't think he would shoot me. I could have killed him. I would have killed him if I could have. I would have killed him, and I would have had no more remorse than I had every morning when I got up and killed the cockroaches in my room.
But for the four men, more terrifying was the precision Allied bombing which hit the military intelligence headquarters where they were being held.
The day we got hit with the bombs, that was probably the scariest moment I went through. And it was something that after, 35, 6 days, I always had this feeling inside of me that something else was gonna happen. Something else bad was gonna happen. And that was it. It was it. But I knew after the first bomb, which caught me on surprise, I was, I think, asleep. It just completely put me in this stage of shock.
Your room, your cell, took a direct hit?
Yeah, I heard the plane, then I heard the bomb coming. The sounds were incredible, and I knew it was coming to me. I mean, so I just crouched into a corner, and there was a big door, and rubble fell. I went like this, and rubble fell on my foot and all over me. Basically, it was on my foot. My room, half the room is just absolutely gone. When I went back to the room, I could see the sky. I could see I could see far away. It's dark, dark, and the whole building rubble all over, and half my room completely gone.
Then Juan opened my window and grabbed my arms, and there we were, touching each other, looking at each other. They were there, and we were, I think Peter said, as we played a little later on, we're not dead. We're not dead. And frankly, shortly after that, I had a certain faith that didn't leave me, that this is as close a call as you'll ever have.
How did you pass the time? I mean, you're locked up in a cell. You were in solitary confinement a good part of the time?
I even made a little ball out of a piece of foam. Used some of the string for my pajama that was coming off. I wasn't completely round, but I got it to a point that I could play with it against the wall and spend time talk. I talked a lot, whispered, not loud. Talked about everything. Talked about plans when I got out. I talked about my family. I talked about my son. Talked about restaurants, food. I was dreaming a lot about food the first 2 weeks. Afterwards, I realized I was wasting my time. In my dreams, I said, come on, you ain't bringing it back, so. And then the next day, that was it. I didn't dream more about food.
If you had asked me at any time during these 24 days, and this will be a horrible admission, what do you want more than anything else aside from being free? If you could have anything now, would you want to see your wife? Would you want to see your daughter? I'd say, no, I want food. At one point, I heard somebody being brought up onto the floor, and I heard him being kicked. 4 times he was being kicked. But I was so deep at that moment, so deep. I was walking down Broadway with a chocolate ice cream cone in one hand and some popcorn in the other, that I couldn't pay attention to the kicking. You develop defense mechanisms you don't know you're capable of.
Just changed you?
Yeah.
How?
I don't know. Too early to tell.
Bob, since Vietnam, you've covered virtually every war, skirmish that there's been. Is this it?
Don't know. I think I'll cover wars again, but it will never be the same. Because what permitted me to cover wars the way I did, what permitted Peter to cover wars the way he did, we've done many together, is, I think, a certain childlike sense of invulnerability. But that's gone. That's gone, and I'll never get it back.
It's the pursuit of the next corner, which I think maybe has gone away in me. Although we were careful this time, we went too far. There was no corner, but it was essentially the same thing. Probably won't look around the corner so readily again, which disappoints me because that's the fascination of what we do.
With all the big events I've covered during my years as a journalist, what came back to me more than anything else was not the last day of Saigon or Sadat coming to